Tales for Dark Nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Over the next 2 nights, hundreds of thousands of people will cluster on balconies, porches, and lawns to watch the supermoon bloat on the horizon. Millions more will tune into live streams on their phones, their tablets, their laptops, and their televisions to take part in this epiphany. The glowing screens, an iridescent assemblage spanning nations, mirroring the network of stars above, signaling union, promising witness. The pallid globe will swell over tree lines. It will assert itself over neighborhoods. It will allow the night that lingers beyond cities and streets and homes, and it will command attentions. Whatever you do, wherever you are, I urge you, do not take part. Do not look upon the supermoon. The news sources cite NASA's claims that this is the closest the moon has been to the Earth since 1948. They are careful to note that there have been other supermoons, even in the recent past, but none so austere, so swollen, so grandiose, such as this, in over half a century. These same sources urge stargazers to take this opportunity to revel in it, to remember it, as there won't be a supermoon like this again until November 2034. And us? We are wanting. We are weak. We predicate ourselves on time, assume that we are at its mercy, and we act to savor any and all historical happenings because of it. We will listen to the news, to NASA, to our friends. We will seize this opportunity. But no news source will tell you why the moon, being any closer to Earth than usual, is important, because they simply parrot each other, mimic specialists' past words. I can tell you the truth, though. I can tell you why we aren't at the mercy of time. We are thwarting it. In 1948, when the last supermoon of this caliber graced the horizon, it captured the attentions of scholars and media alike. Radio listeners and television owners everywhere tuned in. Personalities touted the supermoon as a pinnacle of nature, a sublime experience, the beauty of Mother Nature incarnate. Curious scientists saw it as an opportunity to get a closer look at the celestial body constantly in orbit of us, to maybe mine secrets, to map its face, to exact precise information from its nearness. And so the dual nature of the experience was perpetuated, just as it is today, although on a much smaller scale. Interest spread like wildfire. To onlookers, the supermoon was exactly what they had been promised, a moment to witness something obscure, something unique. But to the scientists and stargazers, a much truer, much darker image was beheld. At first, they focused the lenses of their telescopes on the face. They marked the craters, they noted the hills, they scanned each inch of the moon's surface with careful precision. Then they turned their gazes toward the edges, where the hoary reflection of light met the palladinate hue of dropping night. They adjusted dials, turned gears, swiveled perspectives. They were seeking what lay beyond the veil of the naked eye. They were seeking a glimpse of the dark side. What they found, quite accidentally, was more disturbing. Multiple accounts claimed movement. To many at first it was a trick of the eye, nothing more. But as they adjusted, as they turned, and as they swiveled, scientists and gifted stargazers realized that it was anything but a trick. What had seemed at first to be little more than sharp terrestrial protrusions on the moon's face had shifted. No matter, onlookers claimed, for the moon turns just as the Earth does. But then the protrusions elongated. They fanned out about the ridge of light, a phantom corona, black against black. They shivered and coiled, curled and straightened. The concern picked up receivers, dialed numbers, reported information. All was dismissed by reason, or carefully culled by shadowy sources, at least from the eyes of the public. When at last the supermoon of 1948 reached its peak in the sky, the movement of the protrusions ceased. Each appendage stopped its machination and stood erect. The world below fell silent. Have you ever seen a picture where something strange, something out of the ordinary, something entirely unwelcome, is so clearly evident that the mind simply passes over it without notice? Many times it takes someone else to point it out. Once you see it, then after carefully scanning the surface of the image, racking your brain about what could be out of place, or if it was nothing more than a cruel joke, you finally see the strangeness, and it impresses on your memory like a tack into a board. It was this very same feeling that the stargazers of 1948 felt, in unison in the dead of night. Eyes scanning the black expanse beyond the burgeoning moon, we all saw something we shouldn't have. We saw the protrusions, all at once, steadily impress themselves upon the moon's face. We saw them slip into the surface, like fingers into a glove, a happening entirely invisible to the human eye. And then, without fanfare, we saw it rise above the moon's crown. A wrinkle here, a crater there. We saw its brows creased, the cavernous sockets below glinting like dying stars. We saw the etchings of cyclopean cheeks, the smooth curves of taut, plump flesh. And then, centered, we witnessed the maw, a yawning chasm deeper black than anything imagined, a picture of sating hunger, a fulfillment of some ancient prophecy so horrific it had to be forgotten. It sat suspended like this for only a minute. Then, just as quietly as it had come, the extraterrestrial face crept back behind the mask of the moon, the protrusions unhooked from the edges of the surface, and the shadow in space was gone. I was a 10-year-old when I witnessed the thing beyond the moon, and it was this accident that set my life on a spiraling trajectory toward the science of space. I had to know what I had witnessed. I had to understand what my father's stargazing friends, what weathered astronomy professors, and what demerited future historians had all borne witness to. Now, at 78, I can honestly tell you that I know little more about it than I did then. A lifetime of work put me into close proximity, though. It is for these reasons that I do not trust sources like NASA, because I worked for them. I was among the bright-eyed batch of promising youths they hired shortly into the 60s, and it was there that I was finally able to converse with a meager few others who had witnessed what I had. Incredulity was met with job loss. Dispensation of secrets was met with imprisonment. I knew others who researched, perhaps even more efficiently and effectively than I, the shadow in space from that night. But their work, once discovered, was destroyed, as were their lives. The moon landing was executed, and nothing out of the ordinary was witnessed, just a barren landscape with nothing to offer those below. The government closed the case, and so I kept quiet, hoping that this moment would never come, praying to all of the gods whose names I know that maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't return. But now, I think it has. I've lived my life. I have been more fortunate than others who've walked this same path. But now it is my time for martyrdom, and I hope you will hear me out. I believe the thing beyond the moon, the shadow in space, the black on black, I believe it feeds off of our adoration and admiration. I believe that for millennia it has searched the vast emptiness of space for some sort of satiation, and I believe that on that night in 1948, with the moon as its mask, it found us. I think the attentions we poured out that night drew it in like an aphrodisiac, and it fed as much as it could, like a hungry god starving for adoration. And I believe that in those moments where it hung suspended, face bare and dark in the night, visible through our high-powered telescopes, it considered coming down and taking its fill of whatever we had to offer. But it didn't. It didn't because it wasn't strong enough. Not yet, at least. And so it left. But tonight and tomorrow, the largest of supermoons returns. It will be big enough to obscure the creature's monolithic size. Just as before, it will anchor itself, and it will feed the bright white face of our closest celestial neighbor, a convenient mask for its horrific visage. But this time I do not think it will hesitate. This time I believe it will be too tempted by half a century of further hunger, by its knowing that we have what it needs in full supply to continue to hide. I believe it will come to meet us like a monstrous and unavoidable Messiah. I can only hope that you will hear and heed my words. The only way to keep it at bay is to ignore it, to screw your eyes tight, to busy yourself with other things, for once, to be entranced by the ground on which you stand instead of the sky above your head. Please, for the sake of everything, do not look upon the supermoon. And to all of those who did not hear this warning, know that I forgive you. After all, I have chosen the only option I know will keep me safe. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, I will be gone.
Chilling tales for dark nights.